Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Pozos, and here with me is Omar Pozos, my co-host and husband. How are you doing today, Omar?
I'm doing good. I was just about to adjust my microphone, and I know you get mad at that, so I had to do it very slowly. But I'm doing good. Let's see, what do we got going on? My mom's coming into town this weekend, and I was just sharing with our team. I'm just very excited and grateful. I don't get to see her very often, so gonna hang out with her. Potentially gonna make some ceviche, so we can go to the beach. And so I'm like, there's a lot of great things going on, so I'm happy. How are you?
I'm feeling good. I think you even said earlier, you're like a new person from the time I woke up until I came back from where Omar sent me away.
For context, Vanessa wakes up in the mornings, and can I say, is it fair to say that you're not a morning person? Is that?
I think I am a morning person.
Oh, are you? Okay. Well, never mind then.
Excuse me. I'm the one that usually wakes up before you.
That's true. Well, you wake up and you're just like, hey, like you're just not very awake. And I wake up and I'm like, hey, babe, good morning.
The way we should describe it is not morning person versus not morning person. I'm just somebody who I like to be in my head and my thoughts and kind of go through my routine in the morning. Whereas you're more of like, I don't need caffeine. Like, I'm just alive and the world is great.
Yeah, exactly. And so anyways, Vanessa wakes up and she's like, hey. And then she goes and plunges and she's like, Zoe. I'm like, oh my God, who is this woman?
Yeah, cold plunge and sauna and red light in the mornings, I'm telling you, always gets you feeling good. And, on this episode today, so I want to talk about consistency. And truthfully, I was thinking about wanting to do an episode around this. And then I was like, you know what? I read something from an author I love, Sahil Bloom. I really like his works. I follow him closely. He has a great newsletter. Shout out to him. If I think you can just look him up on Instagram and probably get on his email list. Highly recommend. But he had written an article a while back that I'd saved. And so I haven't actually even gone back through it.
We should try and get him on the podcast. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, there we go.
Sahil, if you're listening, because I know you're listening to the Vanessa G Fitcast.
Probably a big fan, definitely. Big fan. So I recalled that, I had read this from him. And so I kind of went back to my archives where I saved it. And I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to read through it beforehand. We're just going to hop on the episode. We're going to read through it all together here.
I like it.
And Omar and I will kind of add our thoughts while, of course, giving all credit here to what I'm going to read to you guys from Sahil. And so this is a article about how to be consistent. And, I'll kind of skip over the intro into the article, but really the idea here is regardless of what it is you're trying to achieve, whatever it is you are, ultimately setting out goals around and what you want to be consistent in, we all know that consistency is key. We all know that consistency is important, but a lot of people don't know how to be consistent. And I don't think it's something that people broadly talk about enough. And so Sahil offered here a list of short, practical strategies to help anyone become more consistent. So the first strategy here says every day is easier than most days. The mistake a lot of people make is that they think they'll be able to be more consistent by taking a few days off here and there, when in reality, that actually makes it more difficult. This is a counterintuitive truth. It's easier to do something every single day than it is to do something most days. Every day becomes an identity. It's a routine, a lifestyle, a structure, a schedule. It's daily evidence of who you really are. Every day is easier than most days. Oh, so
what
powerful.
Are your initial thoughts on that?
The identity piece, I think, is huge here. And I think what people need to remember is whatever it is you're thinking in your mind of like, I'm trying to become consistent with this. Maybe someone's like, I'm struggling to be consistent with the gym. This doesn't mean you have to go to the gym every day, but it could look like you are somebody who moves your body every single day. And maybe that has variation depending on the day because, the single mom who works a full-time job and maybe a second job at night, like she might find it really challenging to go to the gym every day, but can she make movement a daily practice and make that part of her identity of like, no matter what is going on in life, all hell could be breaking loose, but I know I am going to get 30 minutes of movement in across the day.
Yeah, I think that's a big one for me. So you go from, I'm somebody that goes to the gym every day to I'm an active person, and whether it's walking or yoga or whatever it is, right? You kind of do that. But I look at it from the perspective of, and we've kind of all gone through this, right? But at times, when I was in college, like my identity was not, I'm fit and I like to work out and
Your
I'm
identity
active.
was I go to the gym and then I go eat a whole cheesecake afterwards.
Okay, all right, we're not going to get
story.
into it. But yes, we would do that. But the identity was like, I'm a college kid, I'm broke, and I like to have fun, and I drink beer and this and that, and again, so if you want different priorities, or if you want to prioritize different things, you have to look at it a different way, right? And it's almost, it almost starts, to me, I'm like, you almost have to trick yourself. I'm like, yes, I am an active person. Yes, I do enjoy eating healthy. And again, to your point, it doesn't have to be every day, but if we do it 80% of the time, then that's how you become consistent. And on the days then you're not, it's like, okay, great. Well, if I didn't do XYZ thing, at least I did this much, or at least I did this percentage of the thing, right? So very much agree with Sahil on that one.
Totally. I think with this one, the important thing is to figure out what is the thing that you actually truly believe you can commit to every day, even if it looks a little bit different every day. So like your example of I'm an active person, what an active person does might vary day to day, and that's okay. That's what an active person does. But if you try and get too strict in a way to where it's not maybe feasible for you in this current season of life to do that thing every single day, you might find yourself getting discouraged and being like, oh, but Sahil and Vanessa said every day is easier than most days. And Omar said every day is easier than most days. And here I am, I'm not doing it every day. Like, what's wrong with me? That's where we have to really look at it and be like, okay, well, let's find what is the thing we can do every day to create that belief.
Here's another great tip, right? So let's say on a Saturday when Vanessa's like, oh, hey, good morning, how are you? When she's not fully there yet, but no, seriously, if you start your day and you're like, well, I'm just going to sit on the couch and I'm just going to eat junk food all day long, like all of the little behaviors, all of the decisions are going to lead you to, by the end of the day, you're like, I feel really crappy. And that pattern starts. Instead, if you're like, well, I'm not feeling super great, but I'm just going to go to the gym and get on the treadmill and walk. The rest of the day, you're like, okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit more alive. And the better decisions come about, meaning like, after that, you're going to come home and eat lunch and you're probably not going to be like, well, now I want, burger and fries and this and that. I'm like, I want something to nourish my body. And it's little stuff like that starts to almost, like I said, trick your brain into being like, well, I am an active person. I am choosing to do this kind of thing.
Totally. I love it. Well, the second one on Sahil's list here is fire in the act, grace in the amount. Ooh. To do something every single day, you need a unique approach. Traditional wisdom says you have to choose between 1, holding your feet to the fire, i.e. pushing yourself, and 2, giving yourself grace, i.e. being understanding about slips. In my experience, the best approach for consistency is actually a hybrid. Hold yourself to the fire when it comes to the act, but give yourself grace when it comes to the amount. In other words, make sure you do the thing, but don't worry about how much of the thing you do. This approach gives you the flexibility to adapt to the natural chaos of life without breaking the streak, recognizing that anything above 0 compounds. Functionally, I approach this with my ABC system. A goal, most ambitious, perfect case. B goal, middle ground, base case. C goal, minimum viable level, downside case. On days when you feel great, you hit your A goal. On days when you feel okay, most days you hit your B goal. On days when you feel bad, you hit your C goal. Fire in the act, grace in the amount. Love that. I learned that kind of ABC goals strategy system from Sahil as well, and it's something I've talked about with clients before, but I love this concept of not just having this black and white, here's what it looks like to be, on track, following the things I'm supposed to be doing and really heading towards my goals. And then here's me doing none of it. It's like, let's have levels and let's have on the days that we feel awesome, this is what we're aiming for. And that's our A goal. A goal is not what we're shooting for every day. A goal is what we do on our best days.
Yeah. So let's say like A goal, for example, for somebody that is, working on their health and fitness, nutrition, let's say A goal is you're tracking your nutrition intake, you're tracking your proteins, your carbohydrates, your healthy fats. What would it be in a C goal be?
So for tracking specifically?
Sure.
So I would say A goal is like we're hitting our targets and tracking our food, and we're within 5 to 10 grams of our targets, and we're also 80% nutrient dense whole foods. So we're not just hitting the numbers, we're also on top of quality. B goal might be not hitting our numbers, but still tracking anyway, and maybe still looking for that 80% nutrient dense whole foods or so.
So maybe focusing just on like protein intake per se?
Yeah. It more so for me, and this is where it's like, it could be totally different for a person.
Sure.
So that's where I want to be clear, like this ABC example, one example that might work for one person, not for everybody across the board. But, my top of my head, I would say B goal being, let's track. So we're still awareness around what it is that we're eating. But we're not trying to hit numbers, but let's focus on quality of our food still. C goal is we're not tracking, but we're still paying attention to quality.
I like that. Yeah. And to your point and what he says too here, it's like, anything above 0 compounds. So again, for somebody that is looking to be more consistent, well, sure, when you're at home and you can track everything and you can measure your food, like that's fantastic. When you're traveling or when kids are sick, that might not be viable for you. And so having a plan B, and when that plan fails, having a plan C, I mean, just think about that. It's like you already know when, shit hits the fan, you know exactly what's going on and you know exactly how to recover from it.
Yeah, it literally prevents that all or nothing mentality, because rather than if you're like, I have my A goal, and then if I don't hit my A goal or I'm not on track for my A goal, then it's just like, oh, screw it, I'm going to do nothing. It's like, okay, I'm not on track for my A goal, let me go to my B goal. Ooh, not on track for my B goal. Okay, let me go for my C goal. And we intentionally create a C goal that you could hit no matter what is going on in your life.
And sorry to add, because there's just so many thoughts that are coming up, but the other aspect too is like, you don't start to speak down on yourself, right? You're not like, hey, you're a piece of crap, you're terrible, you can't do this. See, like, here's another thing you're not going to be able to do, right? Because you're like, okay, well, I didn't do A or B, but at least I got this done. And you're like, I can build off of that. Like, I can do this, or I can, be a active person or whatever you want to do or whatever your goals are, but it just gives you those little bit of stepping stones. So we're like, all right, I got this. I can do this kind of thing.
Totally. I love it. Number 3, mornings are your cheat code. Here's the truth. Willpower fades with energy throughout the day. It's much easier to take something on first thing in the morning than it is to take it on after work in the evening. Mornings are also less susceptible to being derailed by the unforeseen chaos that life inevitably throws at us. The hardest part of building consistency in any new arena is the first 10 days. So you need to stack the deck in your favor for that challenging period. Plan to execute your daily action early in the day, and it'll be much more likely to stick. Mornings are your cheat code. Yeah, love this one. I'm a huge fan of like, do your hardest thing first in the day.
What is it? Eat the frog? Isn't that the saying?
Is that?
Yeah, eat the frog is like, you just get it over with.
I think I have heard that before. Like, I do trust that you are not making that up.
I'm not.
So yes, mornings, I'm a big fan of, do the hardest thing first. Like, even within our team, like, we set personal goals, and that's a personal goal I've set right now, is making sure I always do my hardest task first. For me, I personally look at like the work side of things, because for me, like, I know I'm at that point where, like, going back to that first point, I identify as an active person. I know I'm going to always at least do something with my activity. I know, I naturally kind of have my ABC around my nutrition goals. So it's like, I know I'm always going to at least hit that C. The thing that I know I could totally give myself slack on, give myself too much grace on, and just not get to, is like the hardest task I need to do in work. That thing that I'm avoiding, the thing that just feels hard, that I don't know how to get started, whatever that is, I always make that the first thing that I do every single day. And I literally first thing, I wake up, I make my peppermint and dandelion tea and my mud water, my mushroom coffee, and I go to my desk and I knock out that hard thing, and then I go for my walk, then I get dressed, then I get cleaned up, then I do my morning routine, all those things. But I have to eat that frog, as Omar says, first. Otherwise, I know if I push it off, I'm going to keep pushing it off, and the more tired I am later in the day, the harder it's going to be for me to get that thing done.
Yeah, and I mean, do you want to share this too? Because I know you mentioned sometimes in the mornings when you have, the one task or 2 or 3 tasks for the day that are the hardest, or the ones that are going to push the needle forward in business or personal life, whatever that might be. You've even said too how you just feel so much more at ease, relaxed, and it sounds like more intentional with the rest of your day too, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, imagine it's like by breakfast time or by lunchtime, you've already accomplished like your 1 to 2 biggest things that you were maybe the most like stressed about, or you're the most like, I have to do this thing. You've got those done. You kind of feel like a superhero a little bit. You're like, psh, I've got it. I'm crushing it.
I love it.
That's just my inner dialogue anyway.
Girl, you got this.
Number 4, harness the power of peer accountability. Reflecting on the last 20 years of my life, a single factor determined my success or failure at sticking with any new endeavor: peer accountability. The harsh reality is that consistency is lonely. Few will support you on the path. In fact, you will probably lose friends as you grow. But it's hard to do things alone. Having one person with whom you can take on the challenge makes all the difference. Find one accountability partner for your consistency journey. Create a consistency chat where the sole purpose is to message done when you complete your action for the day. Having one person to keep you accountable makes all the difference. Harness the power of peer accountability. Yeah, I mean, obviously we are huge in believing in accountability. I mean, that's why we have a coaching business. Like, I genuinely believe it's not an information deficit for a lot of people. Like, and that's why I put out so much free information, like between the podcast, between the free resources I give out on Instagram, between my Instagram post, our Facebook group, like, someone could probably gather pretty much all the information they need to really figure out their journey. But why is it that people still stay stuck? It's because you need guidance. You need someone outside of you, outside of your own brain, to be able to help lead you forward, to be able to help you. Like we always use the analogy of the GPS system, where it's like, okay, I'm going this way. And like that coach is like that GPS to be like, hey, this would be a faster route. Let's go this way. Or if we go that way, that might feel easier. It might feel a little bit, less bumpy. Like which way do you want to go? Okay, cool. We went this way. Oh, we're making a U-turn. Okay, here's we're rerouting now. It's like you need someone right there in your corner guiding you and just really helping you stay accountable to those promises you're making to yourself.
Yeah, I agree. My thoughts on this one is a little bit different. I would say first and foremost, don't have your spouse or significant other be your accountability buddy, because there's so much nuance and I think feelings at times get a little bit hurt and stuff. So I'm like, look, and we've tried it, you and I, Ness, and I'm like, let me just find my own accountability system.
I was like, I will not coach you any longer.
Exactly. But the other thing too is, and I just saw a quote about this, and it was something along the lines of like, hey, audit your friend circle, audit your circle, because if the people in your circle don't inspire you, it's more of a cage rather than your support system, right? So anyways, my point being is have somebody hold you accountable, but do it from a perspective of like, I'm going to follow this person because they've done the thing that I want to do. Not, hey, I'm going to hold myself accountable to this person, but they're also trying to figure it out, because at the end of the day, you're kind of like, trying to figure this stuff out, but neither one of you guys know exactly what the heck to do. So it creates a lot of frustration and overwhelm and anxiety because neither of you guys have the right tools nor the experience to hold you accountable to the right things.
Yeah, I think the peer accountability piece is effective when the thing that you're trying to hold each other accountable to, or like that your peer is trying to hold you accountable to, is the best thing for you, is the right thing. And that's where I think what you're getting at is a lot of people get stuck in that place of like, they might have the peer accountability, but they're trying to work on the wrong things. And so they keep ending up in the same place. I think about peer accountability within like our client community. We had our monthly client group coaching call the other night, and it's so fun being able to watch like these incredible women. And, we have like the group coaching aspect where all of us are all together chatting on Zoom, but then we also will put all, our clients into small groups of 2 or 3 for, about 10, 15 minutes to like have conversations within themselves and each other. And gosh, it's so powerful watching these women build that peer accountability with each other and create those relationships. And it's amazing. So I think there are aspects to like, you need the mentor who will pull you forward because they've been there and they can guide you and they can really give you quality advice, but also having that peer accountability of a community of people who are in it with you, really powerful. Number 5 on Sahil's list of 7 strategies that actually work for consistency: use progressive overload to build the muscle. A huge mistake I see people make is that they try to go from 0 to 100 on a lifestyle change. You're trying to get consistent with your workouts, so you commit to an hour per day. You're trying to get consistent with your morning routine, so you jump from an 8 a.m. wake up to a 4 a.m. wake up. You're trying to get consistent with your reading and writing practice, so you plan on 2 hours per day. Even worse, you try to go from 0 to 100 on multiple new lifestyle changes at once. This is a recipe for failure. Imagine the lifestyle change as a muscle. You can't bench press 10-pound dumbbells one day, then grab the 100-pound dumbbells the next day and expect it to go well. You're going to fail, get discouraged, and quit. Instead, use progressive overload, a strength training principle of slowly adding load to the muscle to spark its growth. Want to build a workout habit? Start with 15 minutes daily for a week, then 20 minutes for a week, then 25 minutes for a week, and so on. Want to become a morning person? Start by going to bed and waking up 15 minutes earlier than normal for a week. Add 15 minutes each week until you get to your desired time. Want to get consistent with reading or writing? Start with 5 minutes daily for a week, then 10 minutes for a week, then 15 minutes for a week, and so on. As a rule, only focus on one new lifestyle change at a time. You don't need to change your life in a day, but if you slowly change your days, you'll eventually change your life. Use progressive overload to build the muscle. What are your thoughts on that one?
I go back to the consistency compounds over time, right? Everything better than 0 compounds. And it's the same concept here. And again, to what we've kind of been sharing is if you do one training modality and then the next week you do yoga and the week after that it's Orange Theory, then it's F45 and you're like, why are the workouts not giving me the results that I want? Again, to my point, is because you're not ever really building a foundation. You're going from one thing or another, or you're doing a group class workouts where these workouts are meant for the masses, not for you. And so, again, if you want better results, you got to do different things, right? So focus on doing the right things for you, your body, your hormone health, your gut health. What do you think has the higher odds of you being successful? Well, the things that are actually tailored and custom made for you. So, yeah, work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. With our clients, like we'll take an approach often where, when we get started, we'll be like, okay, so here's, really our habits checklist we want to work on. Like these are some really good baseline foundational habits we need to build across these different categories. But let's start with a couple at a time. Let's, identify what are the things we're going to work on first. And we build up to the full list. Once we complete that list, then we have like a more functional habits checklist that we'll move into that's even a little bit more challenging, getting even more deeper into functional health techniques. If from day one, I took a client who's not doing any of the, more foundational healthy habits, and I said, we're going to jump into this functional habits checklist. We're going to dive deep into functional health strategies. They might do it for a few days, but they're going to fall off really fast. This is where really figuring out, for the listener here, be honest with yourself about where you're starting from, and don't try and jump, 10 rungs up the ladder from the ground, right? If you're going to climb a ladder, you climb one rung at a time. So stop trying to jump to the top of the ladder and fall down and keep falling on your face. Let's just go one rung up, even if it feels slow, even if it's like, man, I feel like I could go so much faster than this. You got to curb that feeling and really just remind yourself, I'm in this for the long game. I'm building a foundation here.
That's what those things are called, rungs in between each step.
The rung of a ladder?
Yeah, I had no idea. So. All right, well, I learned something new today.
Yeah. What is it in Spanish?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Spanish is supposed to be your first language, so.
It is. But, at times in my mind, it's just not consistent enough.
Number 6, never try to make up for a miss. Inevitably, you're going to have a miss, a day when nothing goes according to plan, a day when you aren't even able to hit your C goal. It's okay. It happens. The key to bouncing back, stop punishing yourself for the miss. Highly ambitious people have a tendency to try to make up for the miss. They tell themselves they have to do 2 times tomorrow in order to compensate for the off day today. Interestingly, this noble tendency actually pushes you further away from your goal. You're more likely to be mentally and physically exhausted following the overexertion, causing you to miss again in the days to come. Don't punish yourself, just get back to it. Never try to make up for a miss. This one is a really important message, I think, when it comes to nutrition and fitness. When I often will have, a client who's like exactly what he described here of that, the highly ambitious type of person, the person who's like, I'm an achiever. They hold themselves to that standard, but yet they're human. And that one point where their humanness starts to show and they're like, oh, I failed at this. I didn't do the things I set out to do. They typically want to, immediately try and make up for it. Maybe they overate, and so they're like, you know what, I'm going to undereat tomorrow. Maybe they had a lot of, foods that don't make them feel the best. So they're like, I'm going to eat, 100% clean, nothing bad for the next week. It's like you go from one extreme to the next. And when we go on to extremes, what ends up happening is we just ping pong back and forth between extremes. We go 100% clean, and then we find ourselves getting burnout, feeling restricted. And so then we go back to the other side of that spectrum and be like, oh my God, now I feel out of control with the food. We've got to stop ourselves when we have that urge to go make that big swing and that big overcorrection. And let's just say, hey, it's okay. I don't feel my best right now. I did something that I'm like, oh man, kind of wish I hadn't made that decision. Kind of wish I, had done this or not done that. Just acknowledge those feelings and let yourself use it as an opportunity to learn and be like, oh, let me get curious about what caused this to happen, or what is there a lesson here? And either way, just go right back to that middle place of here's my plan. I'm still aiming for, 80% nutrient dense whole foods. I don't need to suddenly be 100%. Nutrient dense whole foods. We're just going to keep going and keep progressing, keep moving forward.
I think that's my biggest deficit, to be totally honest with you. It's the sitting in the feelings where I'm like, I hate it. And I think, as I would like to consider myself a high achieving, go person, but it's hard to sit there and sit in that uncomfortable feeling of oh, I messed up today, or oh, I didn't do the things that I was supposed to. But to your point, you don't go from 0 to 100 miles an hour, or you don't go from 100 to 0. There is a 10 miles per hour, there is a 20, there is a 30, there's a 40, and it's the same concept here. And so I think a lot of it starts with just giving yourself a little bit of grace and being like, all right, today, you know what? I got kicked in the butt and it just didn't work out for me. But to your point, if you keep blaming yourself, overcorrecting, and really going from 0 to 100 all the time, you burn yourself out in the long run, and you don't even do anything to begin with.
Totally. Last one on this list of 7 strategies that actually work to stay consistent. Focus on the trend, not the position. As you try to build consistency, there's a constant pull to compare your current position to everyone around you, but doing so is a complete waste of time and energy. Every ounce of energy you spend comparing your position to others is an ounce that could have been spent on execution. On your consistency journey, your position is much more important than your trend. Consider the simple visual below, and on here he has a visual of a XY axis, and the Y, the vertical axis, is success. The X axis, the horizontal, is time, and there's two lines, an A line and a B line. The A one is shooting up towards success first, pretty fast, and then it levels out over time to get straighter. The B line starts more straight, going over, more towards that time axis, and then it slowly starts to pick up and actually head straight vertical towards success.
We're gonna give this to Kyle so he can put it on the YouTube video.
He's like, great, thanks guys.
Yeah.
If you focus on a point in time, you'd say that position B is worse off, but zoom out and you'd recognize that you'd much rather be in position B than position A. The trend is built through the daily deposits, controllable factors which create momentum you can build upon. Focus on the trend, not the position. I was just talking about this with a client the other day where we were talking about progress and ultimately looking at not like our daily or even weekly changes in our symptoms when we are working on our hormone and gut health, but really looking at the trends over time. Mm-hmm. And so this is someone who is just starting a gut protocol and she has a lot of gut dysbiosis going on. And so we were talking about how we really want to see a big change in her bloating over the next 3 to 4 months. However, I told her, and I said, I'm even going to challenge you here. I know that you are really on top of looking at your symptoms day to day and like reporting your symptoms day to day. I want you to continue to report and, monitor and acknowledge that as data day to day of like, how is my bloating? How are these other symptoms related to my gut health day to day? But I want you to not even put any kind of weight or meaning in the day-to-day. I want us to wait until we have a few months and let's look at the trend of that data over time. Because and the same thing I told her, it's a lot like if I were to put $1 into the stock market. Not that, $1, what's that going to do for us? But let's just like, for the sake of that, if I'm like, I'm going to start investing, I'm going to put some money into the stock market. Now, if the next day I go and look and the value of that money I put in went down and I'm like, oh my gosh, it went down, I got to pull that money out. But then the next day it went back up and I'm like, oh, now let me put some money in. And if I just keep doing that day in, day out of like, oh, it went down this day, now I'm sad, now I think it's not working, now I think investing is a bad idea. The next day it goes up and now I'm like, oh, let's invest more. That's a terrible strategy for financial investing, right? Same thing with your health. And what you are doing day in, day out when you're working on your health is you are investing time and energy and effort into your health goals. And if you look at it like you look at the stock market where you don't let the day-to-day or even week-to-week changes affect what you perceive as if it's working or not, I promise you just stay focused on like, I'm just going to keep putting in my deposit each day, just keep putting $1 in every day. I promise you zoom out over time, you are going to be trending upward towards success.
Yeah. The other thing too is delaying gratification, right? I'd rather, focus on healing my gut and my hormones for the first 4 or 5 months and then dive into fat loss, as opposed to somebody that like loses 30 pounds and then they regain it back. And on top of that, their gut health, their hormones and all these things are still in a terrible place. So it's like, hey, if you do things the right way, it's going to take a little bit of time. But if you take a little bit of time too, that's how you can actually do this in a way that's sustainable, because you're also a person, you also have life throwing at you. So sometimes option A might not be there. And so we go into option B, option C, but then you still keep showing up.
100%. Yeah. I'll share how Sahil closed out this article. He said, consistency isn't about perfection. It's about managing your imperfection to achieve the things you want. It's not glamorous. It's not easy, but it's what separates those who talk about their dreams from those who actually go out and live them. So show up. Show up when it's hard. Show up when it's messy. Show up when no one's watching. Show up when you don't feel like it. Show up when the rewards are uncertain. Just show up. You can never bet against the person who just keeps showing up. And again, this was an article from Sahil Bloom. I highly recommend you check him out. I believe his Instagram is just his name, at Sahil Bloom, which is spelled Sahilbloom. I highly recommend. I think his writing is fantastic. I think he's a really great thought leader in really the personal development space. So Thanks to Sahil, even though he does not know that we are using.
Thanks for listening, Sahil. You can say it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, Sahil. Thanks for letting us use your content. But I hope this was helpful for you guys. I hope that this gave you that little bit of boost of motivation, but more specifically, that boost of strategy to think about how can I build consistency, because that's what matters over time. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another great episode.
Bye, everybody.